Hey, is there anyone there? Is anyone there? Can anyone hear me okay? Does everyone hear me okay? I'm on my laptop. I don't normally use a laptop for this, so I don't know how my audio is. Okay. Awesome. Let me know who can hear me and if I sound clear or not. Awesome. Great. My computer had an issue with the keyboard that's been going on for a couple years. And since I'm going to school here next week, I decided it's time to replace it and get it fixed. Hey, hello, Susan and Michael. But yeah, and so I haven't had my computer for the last week, but I'm glad I have a new keyboard for it because it does like the double keys or wasn't doing it at all. And so I didn't have any, I just didn't have it this week. But now at least I can type scripts and do homework without having to take forever to do it like I was before. How's everyone doing? Oh. I see there's people in here. Do you want to say anything? Any questions or anything like that? I mean, I got re-injured my toe again. It just a freak accident. I was One of my roommates came back and I was in the backyard talking to her and she was watering and I was just passing through and she jerks like the hose right at the same time as I'm walking through and it just like bashes in my toe again. Yeah, it just was the whole like toe was all just all bloody all around and definitely been hurting. So I'm just gonna have to keep on waiting. And it finally got good enough where I could actually I started working out. I started doing squats and going on longer walks and stuff, but that kind of like pushed me back. So here I am waiting, waiting to get better. But yeah, let's think. There's there's a lot of stuff going on as far as out there that I just can't be a part of at the moment because I'm healing and trying to get my Jeep up and running again. Have to get a new engine for it, so waiting on that. Uh, what really sucks about this summer is that we had ton of wild edibles, like tons of wild cherries out there, and the apples are coming in, which is really similar to what was going on when I had my interactions, and I had a lot of suggestive and supporting evidence that these hominids were in the area, but I can't even get out there. I had thought like since my foot was recovering enough to just go like on small walks, I just take walks at night uh, in that area, just minimal slow walks and see if something would happen. But since I re-injured myself, obviously I can't. I have to wait a little bit. What's going on in Michigan? I just know like for me, it's been a challenge. Like with the whole thing. I know it's a little off topic from this channel, but Afghanistan. I had some interpreters that I was in charge of trying to get their families out, and I mean, I tried my connections, and I think I have pretty good connections with people that would be able to do it, and they were having a hard time getting people out. So it's today was tragic with like a suicide bomber out there, And I there's nothing I can do. I tried. I feel bad. Like his wife and his parents are over there, and the best I could tell him was go to Tajikistan and try to go from there. Well, hello, Brent and Risbo. Thanks everyone that's joined so far to talk to me. But yeah, ask me any questions and stuff, or else like I'll just keep just telling whatever comes to mind. Really, like there's all kinds of things to talk about. As you've noticed, I've definitely started going more towards other interests. That's like ancient civilizations and other types of hominids, like the little people, which is exciting for me. It's always been exciting for me, but I did put a lot of time into understanding the North American hominid or Sasquatch because, those interactions, that was scary. Like I literally made me afraid to go into the woods, and especially at night. And I didn't want to feel like that anymore. And so the only way was to overcome those fears was to better understand the species and how they behave and how they interact. And I had to go up there and get like, those one-on-ones, which was terrifying at first, but it definitely helped. Like it helped because now I can go out there with just a knife at night, in the day, wander around and feel relatively safe. I understand the dangers. But I don't have that fear. So I guess as safe isn't the right word to use. It's more, I feel, I just feel, I don't have that fear. So I understand the risk. I understand like what to look for, what to expect. And that gives me some type of safety per se to be out there and enjoy it. Hey Duke, how you doing? It's been a while. I'm glad you're still an admin on here, so I appreciate it. That's awesome. Sweet. Awesome. So does anyone have any questions? Any cool stories to share or anything that's going on? As I'm stuck here. Oh, so Small Town Monsters put something out there, like some encounter stories. No, I haven't checked it out. I will. I did check out Sasquatch Chronicles newest like video one, which I thought was pretty cool. Give me 1 second. The AC just turned on. I'm gonna go turn that off because I'm sure that's kind of loud. All right, sorry about that. So then Michael says, I have a friend that said she had missed the bus because of One tried to lure her into the woods, and she even got in trouble for missing the bus. Oh wow, I bet that's a really interesting story. I wonder how that is. Like I posted it. A lot of people didn't like it because it was my second encounter that I ever had where we were basically getting stalked and by a group of these hominids, me and my friend, that we used to go up into the mountains late at night, and we would run and play tag, hide and go seek for miles up in the foothills. And basically, long story short, I hear him creeping up on me. Like he's really quiet, but he's a big guy. But it's like really steep scree. And I put myself in a position where I was vulnerable because we've been playing this game for a long time. We were in good shape. Like I wanted to challenge myself, so I didn't really have really good egress routes, like easy ways to run out, to make it more fun, to make it more adventurous. So we do this thing where we howl at each other back and forth to try to get the so the game keeps going, because we realize if we're too good at hiding, the game gets really stagnant really quickly. So we howl, and then the other one howls back, so we can start chasing them and know where to look to make the game more fun. So he's a distance away, and I keep howling, and then I hear him like closer, and then I howl back, and then I hear him far away again. And I think what he did is what I like to do, and what I like to do is I'll howl like quieter and in a different direction, so he thinks I'm further away, so he'll keep howling, and so I can get a better lock on him. So he sounded like far away, but I knew he was close. So I stopped making noise, and then I hear him up like behind the brush above me, which is pretty impressive that he can do that on scree. Like I don't know, scree is basically just a bunch of like gravel on a really steep hill, and there's just pine trees and scrub oak between us, and he goes all the way up around this bush right above me with this tree, and he just stops, and he's so close. He's probably, I don't know, maybe 15 feet away, and I'm getting impatient because normally my friend Tom, as soon as he sees me, he'll he'll go right after me because he's much faster than me, so he takes advantage of that. But he's not doing anything. He's just standing there waiting, which is kind of like kind of annoying because I'm just like, come on, bro, I've been waiting this time. So I say, Tom, I know you're there. Come get me. And as soon as I said this out loud, I hear Tom screaming from like, like whatever he was, like maybe quarter mile. Well, he was a distance. And that like freaked me out because I'd already had my first experience. And so instead, like the first time I was like, well, what is that? This time my mind went right to Sasquatch because I was like, well, no one else is going to be out here in the middle of the night in this area. But I wanted to be sure. So I call him on my phone. I'm like, bro, are you here? Tell me you're right next to me. He's like, no, he's at a distance. He tells me where he's at. We've been all over this place. We know it pretty well because we've explored it. So I'm like, please get to me as fast as you can because like right now, like there's something here, and I think I know what it is, and I don't want to go close to it. Because last time I did that, I got like an aggressive response back. So basically, I decide I don't know what to do because I'm freaking out. I'm just, all I have is my headlamp, and I don't want to go see what's up there because of stuff that's happened in the past. So then I go running like as fast as I can towards him. And so I go running to him, and he's in this area where basically there's like the service road and there's like a little valley between us, and there's these really big rocks. If you ever look up Garden of the Gods, they look like these almost like erect rocks that were formed. So there's two of these kind of between us on either side, and then like kind of like the road where it breaks in the middle. And I see him on the other side, so like I howl at him to come over, and I see him coming down the slope because like there's moonlight, and then I see him running back up, and I don't understand why it's taking him so long. So I at this point I turn on my light, and I get him over, and he sees it, and he comes over to me, and I don't feel secure right now because we're full of brush and like trees everywhere. And so we run up the trail, and this trail goes up to like this thing we call the Scar, which is all been mined off for gypsum for the Air Force Academy where I live. And we go up there so you can see all around, and I tell him like what happened to me. And then what he tells me? He says the reason it took him so long is because every time he'd come down, he would see like, so first he said he came down the first time, and then he looked back up and he saw two figures coming down following the route he took down this hill. And so he thought it was me, that maybe I brought like a friend and didn't tell him. And so he turned around and went back up. And by that time I had ran all the way over to the area where he was at. And that's where I saw him way back up on the other side of that like hill again. And that's where I told him to come down. And so he said he was coming down again. And because we used to trick each other all the time. So we just thought I was messing with him. And he kept seeing like these hominids walking around. So he said he was coming down, and then he saw down in the brush at the bottom that another like a person walking creepily through the brush. And so he thought that was me, like I was just trying to trick him into getting close so that I could catch him, even though it was his like turn to catch me. Yeah, we just switched it up all the time. So that's why he started running back up until I put my high beam on, and he came back down. He couldn't see it. But yeah, I don't even know like where that story came from. I know we were talking about something, but it's but that definitely scared me like the second time that was, and then after that I stopped going at night up there. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, so the luring part, that's where it came through from, because so the reaction I understand now, and that I think occurred, is that they were watching us playing who knows how many times, and I think most animals and people can associate with play, and I think they wanted to play. I feel like tags like just something like most like living things do especially primates, you name it, mammals. And so I think he wanted to play. I think they were playing with us, and I bet you they'd been doing this often because we were going up there every other night, sometimes like every night for a week straight till like a 2 to 3 in the morning. And I think eventually they got accustomed to us and got comfortable to the point where they came really close. And it makes me wonder the times where, because my friend Tom, sometimes he'd throw rocks at me to mess with me, like on really dark nights, like it'd be hard to find him. And sometimes I wonder, and I asked him, I was like, dude, I wonder how many of those times were actually you versus with something else. So, but that might come into luring, like wanting to interact with you, or maybe more dubious like agendas. Oh, let's see. Thanks, Duke. Appreciate it. I've been trying to improve like the videos too to make them more interesting. Jordan, yeah. What kind of experience do you want to share it a little bit? If you do, that'd be awesome. I'm always down to hear. Oh, the Wendigo encounter story. Yeah. With Hammerson Peters. Yeah, Hammerson Peters is a great guy and he's doing awesome. Like I'm really glad that I know him. But I'm glad I didn't see whatever my friend saw. Like that definitely, I mean, I want to see now what he saw, but when he saw it, I wasn't ready. I could barely handle that something like Sasquatch was alive and out there, let alone some like deer man type thing that it really looks like it was hunting him with potentially malicious intent. Well, hello, Mr. Sage. So the foot, I re-injured myself again. I'll just say the story again really quick. Basically, I was talking to someone walking through like a hose, my roommate, and she yanked it, not noticing where I was, and because she was watering, and just like rammed right into my toe. And so the toe is just all bloody again and healing up. So I'm just, more patience, more waiting. Oh, hey, just curious. It's good to see you. Yeah, do you guys have any questions or stories? Come on. I know you guys have something out there. Yeah, I don't know. The first 2 times I did it trying to improve healing, and it made my toe worse. But this time, it wasn't me doing anything to try to increase it. So I guess that's a pro. So I'm looking forward to fall. Hopefully I'll be more healed by then, and it'll be a little cooler weather. It's always nice when there's no mosquitoes around. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on everywhere as usual. I'm just looking at one of the dogs. I don't know, maybe you can see her. That's Maggie. She likes to complain when she wants something. She likes to smack her bowl. Ooh, attempt to trap Bigfoot. I'm sure people have tried, but I don't know how successful you'd be. Like that's the only way I could potentially see it is if one was by itself going into territory that or crossing through that it's not used to, maybe like in an urban environment. Something that gives us the advantage, like when most animals are in urban environments, it's really easy for us to spot them. What we learned when we were in the Marine Corps was, like urban warfare. And basically, it's much more difficult because you're in a 3D environment and it's random versus on the landscape, like when you're out in the field, on the mountains or forest, it's more predictable, the terrain. and so you're able to better understand and better navigate it and know what to expect. But in a city environment, it's way more dangerous, way more difficult because things things aren't always going to be the same. There's going to be different types of environment. It's going to be 3D too, because it's not just going to be like a like the way that the mountains and hills are. You're going to have people that could be up like in buildings, and you're going to have different like structures, the way things are built out. So you can't make an easy, predictable like a conclusion or assumption of what to expect next. So it does make it the city a lot more advantageous for some, but disadvantageous for others. In this case, maybe the Sasquatch. That might be hypothetically, if one was passing through or in an area that's more urban, it might be like in our favor in this scenario. What else? Yeah, honestly, like the only way I've been able to, and I guess you could call it luring them in, is just like with curiosity. But I also have to give them all the advantages, like they have to have like a way to come in, easy way to go out. I have to change my posture. So like I can't be, oh, look at this. Hold on. Look at her. She's smacking the bull. She wants food. She's already been fed plenty today. But anyway, yeah, like but that makes you vulnerable. And so that's like a setup that's worked for me at least twice by mistake, and then the third time on purpose, which was, imagine how terrifying it is, like having this idea in your mind and being like, I think this will work, and then going and trying it, and then it does work. It was overwhelming as much as it was exciting. I mean, it took 3 months though, like of just every other day going to the spot before something happened, but still, it was still like overwhelming. Well, yeah, I mean, so natural camouflage. I mean, look at a ghillie suit. A ghillie suit is like has different colors, but it comes down like in strands, like in hair, and hair in different colors distorts you really effectively. I mean, just look at a dog like kind of hidden. I'm and maybe not everyone has that, but basically one of the dogs, the huskies here, like when she goes and lays down like in the grass, that's mixed between like different colors, green and more tan and dark, she's hard to see. I have to like, sometimes I think like she's jumped the fence, and I have to go out there and she just pokes her head up, and I'm just like, oh, you were right there, just like 30 feet away from me. Do I think the Patterson film is real? Personally, I mean, yes, I do. I think there's a lot of stuff that's hard to recreate. And I remember one of the things that was most convincing to me was when I was watching an episode that Les Stroud made, where he tried to fake Sasquatch prints, and he went and talked to these individuals in LA that were, they were costume makers, people that would have the skill to make something look real, and they gave him a discount, and they gave him like they worked with him in order to create like the weight, because they had to put like something like 400 pounds of weight or more, and they had to build a device that would also like articulate, because he wanted to see if he could fool Jeff Meldrum. And you know how much it cost him with discounts just to make fake the prints? $10,000. Okay. $10,000 just to fake the prints, which he tried to go like use it. He brought the castings to Jeff Meldrum, and at first Jeff, you could see like he was like, wow, this looks really weird, sorry, real. And he was starting to get convinced, but then he looked at it closer and he's like, wait a minute, this looks almost exactly like some of the castings I have, which he had used in order to make it look more realistic. And so in this situation, it almost fooled him. Now he asked him, okay, and this is Les Stroud asking like these group of, I guess they're well known like within the movie community of creating like real life type like costumes and creatures. He's like, to create something like the Patterson film, would you be able to do it? And they said maybe, but it would cost at least $100,000 or more to make it look like that real. And they were very adamant about, well, they didn't have that type of technology or ability when the Patterson like Gimlin film came out. So that to me that was pretty convincing. Different experts in their own field throwing like their uh, their thoughts on the matter. So that's something that definitely convinced me if I ever had any doubt was that episode. I don't remember the name or where it was. It was one of the ones he did like with the Sasquatch series. All right, what else? I've been watching the X-Files and I don't recall a single episode of Bigfoot. I may be mistaken. Didn't they debunk the Patterson video that on a Mythbusters? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how like they would without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, I let's look that up actually. Let's see what how they debunk it. Did they debunk Patterson film on Mythbusters? Oh, so I'm not seeing anything right off the bat of evidence. The only thing I do see is it looks like a case study from Jeff Meldrum, and then there's a bunch of other links that say it hasn't been. But I'm not. Again, that's just like a quick search, so it might be there. I just couldn't find it right off the bat. I'd have to do more digging to see like if there's a source there with Mythbusters. All right, what else? Yeah, and maybe if you find that link or someone has it, let me know because that would be great to see like the different criticism or critiques or like evidence that would suggest the contrary. Hey, Daryl. Hello, Brent. Yeah, I mean, I think so too. Like, and that's why I use the reference with Les Stroud and how much work he did just to create something, how much money it would have cost to create something like that. It's still pretty impressive. Like when you think about it, like even today, like to make something like that, it's still really difficult as far as just like a prop. And then you still have to have pretty good skill set if you want to make it like CGI. Like the best system would be like a really professionally made prop, like puppet, made with CGI. But those both combined are a lot of money and expertise in order to make, and it's really tedious. Like if you want to like create like CGI around something, you basically have to go in frame by frame with masks and then edit those masks and basically like Photoshop it, but frame by frame. So it's not an easy thing to do by a long shot. Like me, I tried videos like just trying to like make my eyes glow as I move, and it was so hard and it took like so long, and it was so obvious like how like the overlay over it, even though it was like moving with my head. There was some guy that came forth saying that he participated in fake. Yeah, there's been a lot of people that have come forward that have claimed that it was fake, and they even brought like I think some even brought like said they had like a fake suit and everything, but it doesn't add up. Like from what we can see in the film, the height that we can get with like anatomically speaking is, if I understand like correctly, the like once they understood like the millimeter of the lens, they could decide and actually calculate the size, and based on the size they were able to project and calculate like the actual anatomy of a person being inside there. And once they did that, the knees, which you can't change the joints of your knees in these suits, right? So they have to be anatomically correct for a person. Same like with your arms and like the joints, and they didn't match anywhere near that of a human. And so that was like some of like the pretty big proof, at least to I think it was to Jeff Meldrum to support that this was indeed not a person that was filmed. All right. Duke says, I was around in 67. And it wasn't really possible to make a suit like that at the time. It's even really hard to make a suit like that now. Like Les Stroud, based on his sources and his calculations, talking to those people, estimated over $100,000 to make something like that. Like, who has that kind of cash willing to like throw it for a hoax? Like that's a lot of investment in time. Not just the suit, just like the movements. Like just there's so much that's involved in making something like that. It's pretty impressive though. Like honestly, like to make something even now to replicate that. Oh, and Brent, yeah, he makes a good point. Like, why even go through trouble to make something look female when it's going to be a lot easier to make it look male? I would assume, right? I mean, what do you guys think? Oh yeah, and then yeah, the individual that Duke's talking about, named Bob, he has been known to be at least like anecdotal. People have stated like he's made stuff up in the past. So that's another one. But we also know that there's a lot of like for people that made a bunch of tracks out there, and they came forward, showed all the prints, but that taught us, like it fooled us some decades ago, but it also taught us now what to look for, how to know the difference between something fake, how to know like what to look for a human footprint versus something else. So as much as it was like we did get fooled many times, it was a growing experience, and it's taught us a lot that you and I now have that knowledge that we can just look up on YouTube and go out and be more educated when we go look at tracks or find impressions that might be some unknown phenomena. Oh, yeah. So there's another like a number right there, like 50K. That's still like who's willing to throw like 50K? Like maybe like if you're like a millionaire, billionaire, and you just want to play God and just see like people's reactions. Sure. Other than that, like I don't think your regular Joe is going to have the time or desired or willing to invest that much capital into something that you might only be able to do once, and like you may not get anything out of it. Well, and then he says, what about those fools that claimed that they shot one and had it in a cooler? They discredited the seriousness or the possibility of the existence of these creatures. Yeah, and it's tough. And maybe I'm sure people have shot them. I'm sure that like some have died by human hands. Whether we've actually been able to grab like the bodies or not, I don't know. And human greed is powerful. So, and you see it all the time, like within the Sasquatch community, like good projects start, they amass a lot of like evidence and data and like content, but then like it breaks down within, and the whole thing just disintegrates. And since they all like to like assign non-disclosure agreements, they're just all like stuck. They can't share the information. And I bet a lot of people have have gained some really valuable information and data and evidence that we've just never seen. And then let's see. The military's proven that they killed him. What incident is that, if you don't mind? I know after I left 29 Palms when I was in the Marine Corps, I started hearing like that people on post were actually seeing these hominids running around, and that it was more a regular occurrence there than I ever could have imagined. So yeah, the PG film like gets thrown around a lot, but it always comes back once like experts in different fields look at it. Like that, they're normally pretty astonished, and even though a lot of them aren't willing to say, "Hey, that's real," they will go as far as say is like there's no way that could be like a person. It must be something else. What? I don't know. So what are the best Bigfoot Sasquatch literature books you've ever read? Any suggestions? Okay, so what I've liked the most, and this is me personally, is I like finding the accounts that are the oldest. I know like some of my favorite ones are the oldest ones that you can find on BFRO. I know another good one is Timothy Rayner. He likes to go and look historically for these, but a lot of the times you'll find them in the newspaper. And what I like so much about these is because some of these are at a time when Sasquatch wasn't like known about, wasn't talked about, a time when like gorillas hadn't really been seen, just heard about it, or like just skewed in drawings. And so there was nothing really to associate Sasquatch to. Because right now, right, like when we see it, we're just like, oh, I saw Sasquatch, but they have to articulate in a way with a reference point that that we don't have. And so what that has done for me is, one, like it's been helpful to just better understand like their descriptions, because it's more, I would say, unbiased and more like a critical, because you're not just saying, oh yeah, it looked like the Sasquatch, because now it's easy just to say that. Two, a lot of these are from like hunters or just people that have lived out in the wilderness for a long time, and to hear like them recount like its behaviors, like how it moved, where it went, like what they found. That's really, like, for me, enlightening, or like really like good information that paints like a really good image and a descriptor that's helpful for me to understand them better. So I guess I don't know if that helped, but that's my thoughts. What? Hey, it's okay. Ask questions. Like, we're curious. Like, we want like we want to know more, but we also don't want to be fooled, because then like it takes a lot of time and trust from putting our trust in like a belief into something. And so it's understandable that we don't want to be fooled, and that we want this to be real, but we don't want to feel vulnerable if we're mistaken. So I say, ask questions. And I'll just give you the best answer that I can. All right, so let's see. Yeah, going back to what Duke said, there's no way they would have been able to do that, unless like we're missing a huge part of info, like that we could find actual concrete evidence that would suggest, like that they had like a backer with phenomenal skills, money, and like somebody that was anatomically not human to use the suit. All right. All right, you guys. There's no reason to fight. Let's just keep chatting. Okay. Well, okay. So I hear what you're saying. They bury their dead, and that is why like we've never found a dead one. But the truth is, I mean, I would think they do. That would be like my assumption, but we don't actually know, because I don't think we've. Is there even hey Duke? Is there any anecdotal evidence of seeing them bury their dead? Do we have anyone that's ever seen that? I don't think it has. So there's not much to go on. It's a good assumption, but it doesn't explain why we don't see their bodies. In fact, it's really hard to find decomposing bodies at all up in like the wilderness, especially like at the right climate. Like up here in the mountains, I was taking my forensic anthropology class. It's insane how fast animals would degrade, and how animals will eat them, and how, like even the bones, like the hedgehogs. I think it's the hedgehogs. They eat bones and stuff. And there's other animals that will too. And so animals decompose really fast up in the wilderness, and that's why you don't normally see them. Like the most animals I've normally see are kills, either by what I think is Sasquatch, or by mountain lion or something else. So when you understand like the decomposition of material, like in different environments, it's easy to understand how they don't even have to bury their dead, but it would be hard to even come across it, because like most animals, they go to a secure place when they're sick or dying that's hard to find, and they just die there, where it's going to be hard for you to probably see them or find them. So that's why we don't normally see dead animals unless like they've been killed recently by either by a car or another predator. All right, let's see what else. Oh, okay. So yeah, if anyone has like a link of one of the stories where they've been seen like a recounting that being buried, send it this way. That'd be great. So anecdotal evidence is great. I mean, it's helped us a lot, and but there's still like supporting evidence, anecdotal evidence, and hard evidence as far as like when we want to get more support and more convincing to people outside the group or even within the group. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, no. So say they said, here's a wild theory. Maybe they are ancient hominids using DMT and protecting themselves across space and time, projecting themselves across space time. And it's hard to tell. Like quantum physics and the study of consciousness is slowly meeting, and the realization of the fabric of our like physical world might be a manifestation of consciousness. Does eventually make you wonder what else is going on and what are we seeing? And I think at the end of the day, what eventually we do learn about this world is just understanding like the reality of mind and reality itself. But I don't know. Yeah, like, that's something I guess like that's going to take time, and so like maybe a spiritual journey to identify if that is the case or not. Um, and to be fair, it's not a theory. It's more like an assessment or hypothesis. So, because a theory is something that we have hard evidence for, that there's been tests to quantify it that have been done over and over again. So normally you have a hypothesis first that you think is you have good data on and you have good information, but a hypothesis is good. Hypothesis is basically like what most people say when it's a theory. It's like a hypothesis, or even less than that. But basically, it it goes from hypothesis to studying and then to a theory. But theories can be changed. Okay, theory is just an interpretation of the evidence and the experiments. So it's not like ingrained in stone, but it's the closest scientifically that we could ever get to actual facts. What do you think of the shows like Finding Bigfoot and Expedition Bigfoot? Well, okay, Finding Bigfoot, I've never been a big fan. I get like that their intent, right, was to for entertainment, which I get, which I'm fine with. I thought, like, okay, you need to make money to be able to do this and to be able to go out and do this more effectively. But that didn't happen, like they just went and did the show, and then I didn't see any evidence of using those resources and that and kind of like the notoriety that they got to keep on going, individually or as a group to really find this out, and that was kind of disappointing. And I know, like they're doing another like Finding Bigfoot show, or Matt Moneymaker's doing a new one or something. I don't know if it's a continuation or something else. So I don't know. I don't know. That's where I stand. They ran around and making a lot of noise, expecting to find something in a couple days in an area where like it would take years or months or weeks to even have like a hint of success. Um, Expedition Bigfoot, it's mixed. It's mixed. There are some things there like that I felt like were deliberately staged because they were looking for content, and then there's other things there that were really intriguing. Like the most recent one, that huge thing that popped up in the what is it called? That vine that takes over everything, by the two deer. That thing was massive, and then it just like popped back down, like it went somewhere else. That was really impressive to me because that thing was huge. I don't know what it was. Like we can't definitively say what it was, but it was enough for me to be like, hey, that might be a Sasquatch because whatever that is huge. So I prefer that one more. I'm always again, I try to I look at it critically and try to be skeptical. All right. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, found a bear skull while hunting. Dude, that's impressive. And the teeth are still there. That's a hard find, especially like if it's just natural in the wilderness naturally like died. That's really cool. All right, Rizbo, thanks. Thanks for joining us. I hope you have a good night too. Appreciate it. Yeah, Daryl. I mean, like, who knows? I mean, they could be anywhere. Like their movements, they could go miles and miles and miles in ridiculously difficult terrain in just probably a span of a couple hours. So where they go to feel sick or sleep or feel safe or die might be very inaccessible to us. And it's easy for us to make that assumption of, well, because they're down here right now, they must be nearby. When in reality, like they're down there right there, but in a couple hours, they might be, 20 miles away, more maybe. Uh, what is the longest time you spent solo camping, and when will you be going out again? Well, so the longest time I've gone camping was, I think it was 2014. 2014, yeah. I've been practicing like survival skills, and had been working like just learning how to live out there, and the best methods to to live out there. And I basically went up on Pikes Peak. If anyone knows where that is, in Colorado, it's a 14,000-foot mountain, and I went at 10,000 feet on its east side, and I stayed there most of winter, about maybe 4.5 to 5 months, and I just lived off the land. And most of my time was spent hunting food and cutting firewood. But it worked. I figured if I could do winter, then any time of season would be a piece of cake, which is true. I don't ever want to really do winter again. Every time I go winter camping, I'm just like, I'm like, why am I doing this? I've already proved this to myself. But it was really humbling, and it was really difficult. But I did it. I did it. So that's the longest I've been out. Let's see. Where do you think is the biggest hotspot for seeing a Sasquatch? So where do you? So I guess like I would say honestly, with the information I have now, like down in Florence, in an area where, like that has you have a lot of mountains on both sides, then these washes that go down and hit the Arkansas River. And these washes, a lot of them go through these small little towns down there. It's not very much light or anything. It's just a small little town. But we have gotten so many reports from people along like these washes in town, you name it, along the Arkansas River, up in the mountains nearby. People seeing these hominids going through since, I think our earliest one since the 60s, and that it boggled my mind. In fact, the first one was on the BFRO website, which basically said like they went through like they saw them on the main street. Again, it's a small town, no one there, no barely any lights, and then like went down into the wash. And I just dismissed it for many years because I'm just like, whatever. Like, there's no way they'd go into like town. But Glenn down there, who lives there, he's asked so much, and he's gotten so many like encounter stories that I just can't dismiss it. Like, there's definitely clear evidence from at least like an anecdotal point that they're using these washes to go back and forth between like the main tributary and the mountains. And if that's the case, find a place like that. And in fact, if you wanted to, you can go to Florence, Colorado, and that whole area has just tons of evidence of them moving through. In fact, it's been so profound that we've actually considered using the thermals at night and going to the areas where people have seen them passing through, because the best place that we're going to be actually able to document them is going to be a place like a town, like an urban environment that they're moving through. Granted, it's really small. Like they only get they don't have to walk very far to get through and get to the river. but that's like definitely like a hotspot where if you were looking, you'd have the highest chance to find it. And there's a lot of people there like that have seen them, like whether they're officers, like they work at like the corrections facilities, like you name it. Like it's it's blowing me away. It's blowing me away. It's way easier to move around that environment than it is like up in the mountains, like where I live. Let's see. So, I mean, sure they hide, but I don't think like they're afraid of us. I used to think they were afraid of us, but I think it's just like within they're just the way they operate. I think they're definitely ambush predators. Like they ambush to hunt and to eat. They're highly intelligent, but I think they're curious about people for the most part. Like I think they want to interact at least like in certain places. I've gone to areas where I think are more like homes, like home range, where like they like to hang out and they feel safe. It's very clear they don't like me there. But when we meet down in the areas where I think they go hunting, uh, then I get a lot more friendlier interactions. Again, I'm making assumptions here based on like limited interactions and experiences, but I think for the most part, yeah, they're trying to interact and engage you, whether that's mess with you or not. I'm sure there's many areas where if they're hunting or if they can't find food or if they've had bad experience with people, they're going to be negative and they're gonna scare you out. Yeah. So yeah, it's been pretty. It's crazy that to think that like a intelligent hominid that may even have a language is like out there, just like waiting to talk to. Imagine like the things they could tell us, like their perspectives, their perceptions. Oh, that's what really intrigues me to see the world from an entirely different way than we could ever possibly probably imagine. The guy show, what's up? Hey, it's good to hear from you. Oh man, a lot of people here with good stories that are actually on the channel themselves. Oh, the 4th of July trailhead outside of Rollinsville, Colorado. I have to check that out. I haven't heard of that. And it's very curious that these beings are seen all over the earth. Perhaps one day the truth will come out. Yeah, I think it'll come out soon, sooner rather than later. I mean, I think we're in a place. I laugh with some of my colleagues on this that like we're going to discover like Sasquatch without a shadow of a doubt as far as evidence and prove it to the world, and the world's going to be so messed up the way it is that no one's going to care. But we will. The few of us will. I've heard reports of all different colors of Sasquatch. I think they have different races within the species, similar to humans. I would think so, and that again, that's just like a like an assumption. But we also know like bears, right, and different animals will have different shades of color as like a natural adaptation to different environments that still work, right? And oh, here's something cool that you guys might enjoy. So the color like orange or even like red. So a tiger, for example, it's orange, and it adapted orange because it can't adapt to green. It's just not within the genetic code. So orange, by most of its prey animals, look like green and like or dark basically, and blend in with the grass. So when we hear about like these reddish Sasquatch and stuff like that, it makes me wonder. Like that's to us that can see like in colors. It's a little easier to discern. But if you're something like a deer, that's going to blend in way easier, especially like in a big like a pine forest or something. And you have heard of like different distinct variations in behavior and looks from encounters that are further down south or east or west. So I wouldn't be surprised if we find different slight morphologies within the species as a whole, in different depend on different parts. Um, yeah, they could also eat their dead, which is something humans have done historically in a lot of places, and still some of them practice today in some of the hunter gatherer tribes. In New Guinea, they had to stop because it almost killed them off because there were prions that were just destroying their bodies. Oh. Giant squids were fairy tales once. We know they're real now. That's true. That's true. There's a lot of stuff we made a lot of conjectures on and conclusions, especially like within science. Granted, that's all we had to draw those conclusions, and so they did. But a lot of this stuff, and a lot of fossils too, right? Like a fish, and who knows what else, have found evidence that they're still existing. Some have even claimed a long time ago that they thought maybe dinosaurs may have still existed into the Amazon jungle. And although that's hasn't been disproven, it's a lot of people don't think that's the case. But there are strange reports of strange creatures that sometimes depict what we thought dinosaurs would look like down there. And the Amazon's vast; it's huge, and there's still, like, even though there's a lot of deforestation, there's still so many areas that are so hard to like access. Yeah. Do you think the high ups in the government know all about them and are deliberately hiding the truth? I think it's a little bit of both, honestly, and that's just coming from like a military background. So if one officer or one department knows about something, and it's just like too inconvenient, right? Like it's going to take too much paperwork, too much money. Then they just say, well, don't worry about it, and they literally mean don't worry about it, so they don't have to worry about it. So I could also see that in the case, like different departments knowing that these hominids exist, but it's either too much paperwork, cost too much, or they're going to lose too much. Like the forest industry, for example, they would lose like a ton of money, or sorry, the lumber industry, if these things, like, if it was like tomorrow, without a doubt, that they were real, and whether like they have a language, or whether they're more like a primate, like a that they're still going to get tons of protections, and that's going to just cripple in the eyes of like the lumber industry, the money they get and the power they have, and they have a lot of power. They have a lot of power. They lobby for natural resources. Anything that lobbies for natural resources is probably aware of them. But there's no why admit that they exist if that means like you're not going to be able to get your oil there, or you're not going to be able to cut your lumber over there. So I wouldn't say as a whole, but I would say different pieces of government probably are aware of them, but it's just not in their interest. Oh, okay. All right. Are there other questions? It looks like there's a little argument going on over here. All right, yeah. Daryl. I mean, if you have like evidence and truth, and you're on the right track, then people eventually find it, and they'll support it. So you just let them come to you. Well, hey, thanks, Nick, for stopping by. I appreciate it. Hope you have a great night. No, I think you're right, Brent. Yeah, And thanks. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on. Have a great night. Yeah. I mean, like Sage brought up a good point. Like like we've had heard the chatter and it's been heard multiple times, and the way it moves, like the speed, is very intrinsic to some primates that we know of. Like their brain processes it 10 times faster than ours, and their memory is 10 times better than ours, like their short term. And these hominids, these people are probably 10 steps ahead of us every step of the way. So it's like that. That's why it's so hard to try to outflank them or outsmart them, you know. Uh, and even like, and you join that with their ability to execute moves because of this tremendous strength and agility. You have like a super being, like by all intents and purposes. Like it's like super, definitely superhuman. All right, Daryl, thanks for coming on. I hope you have a great night. All right, let's not fight. Okay, everyone. Let's uh let's just ask more cool questions and like just because there's so much good stuff out there. And the thing about assumptions is I like assumptions that are testable. So what I like to do is I like to make assumptions and then go see if I can test it out to like I assume that this is probably might be where they're hiding or where they're hanging out for like a few days. And so during that I would go over there and see if I could find any evidence. So that assumption or the hypothesis either gets validated or it doesn't. But I think assumptions and speculation help us ask the right questions. Hey, Audacity. Welcome to the channel. Yeah, since I couldn't get a video out this week because I was my computer was getting worked on, I decided to do this live video. Yeah, but I really can't wait for my toe to heal and my replace my Jeep engine to get back outside. Oh man, I've just definitely been stuck. It's I didn't realize how much I like to run around and move until I until I couldn't. I couldn't do it very effectively at all. Oh, cool. Was it was it terrifying for you or was it like a good experience? I remember my first one was terrifying for me because it just broke my paradigm. It wasn't a paradigm shift. It was just like I just shut down. I was like, I can't do this. Oh dang. Yeah. Yeah, the mind will definitely compartmentalize things when it's trying to figure stuff out and it can't. Dang. So were you actually able to like have like a close interaction where you handed the berries? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to hear about that. Have a great night. So, send me a text and we'll find a time to talk on the phone. Dang, how old were you? Wow. Yeah, anyone that wants to send me an email just about anything, just send it. I'm writing it right now. Basically, if you want to send me anything, any counter type story, or just have any questions or whatever, there's like my email. Yeah, that's always it's always really interesting. Like that children seem to be able to interact and have less fear, and these hominids are way like they seem like they're much more willing to approach them. And I think that speaks volumes. I think that says a lot about behaviors. Like our behaviors as adults versus our behaviors as children, and how that influences these interactions. Because I know when I had my first one, I was in a much better state. Like I'd worked on a lot of my PTSD. I was able to kind of find peace instead of like always looking over my shoulder and being defensive. I was able to actually relax and not worry about stuff. Again, right? Like I got complacent, not worried, and that's when I had the interactions, ironically. But I think there's a parallel there between behaviors, micro movements, and expressions that we kind of give. Yeah, that's a really interesting story. Yeah, certainly send me an email and we'll see. Like to hear about that. I'm sure there's a lot of wealth of information there, the behaviors and stuff. Yeah. So when I went to the Marine Corps, I went into infantry and I went to Iraq and Afghanistan. I was in Afghanistan in 2008. Like I was saying earlier, I still have like an interpreter reached out to me because he has his family over there, and I tried my best to try to get him out, but there's nothing I can do with the chaos over there. So, I mean, I definitely have heard about like the encounter of the Kandahar giants, and I'm on the fence of that one, and I'll tell you why. Um, so the Kandahar giant, just so you know, is is an is an operation name. The Kandahar giant was Osama bin Laden, and I forgot about it until I was talking to one of my friends who was in special forces around that time, and I was like, "Well, did you hear about the Kandahar giant?" He's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Oh yeah, tell me about it." Like because he was in that area. He's like, "Yeah, that's the operation name for Osama bin Laden." And I was like, "Oh right, that's right." So I find that interesting that they would use that name, which it was like a notorious operation name for it. But on the other hand, the people they interviewed, they're talking the lingo. They sound very much like they were like in the military, in the Marine Corps. And so I'm kind of caught in between the two, because on one hand, I find it suspicious that they call it the Kandahar Giant off of operation name in the area. But on the other hand, it sounds the way they talk, it sounds very credible that they were in the military. Um, So I want it to be real, and not obviously like not like the deaths that occurred in there, but like that such like a huge being is still around and in small numbers. But they say like there's giants in the Nevada desert. I read books that say like the natives like still say stories that you can sometimes run into them roaming the desert over there. So maybe there are small bands of them that still exist. I don't know. I hope we find out though. I hope we find out more down the road. Adasi writes, "Be native. I began to search, and I was told that we considered them our older cousins, and taught us to live in the forest, and they are the keeper of the forest." I believe that. I totally believe that. I used to be afraid in the forest when I knew they were around because I just didn't understand them. I didn't know them. But now when there's evidence that they're around, either through an interaction or something that tells me like, oh, I think they're here, I feel way safer because I know none of the mountain lions, none of the bears, nothing is gonna come out in that area when they're around. They are like the kings of the forest, and if I think you have good interactions with them, you probably have like kind of like a forest guardian, honestly, around. Yeah, I'm just glad to be free, out of the service. Pros and cons there, that's for sure. So the why the military gave up is really easy. When I was in Afghanistan, we actually our unit took over Helmand and Saigon and parts of Farah province from the British, and they even put my platoon all the way in this area called Bakwa, which is along the Silk Road, which archaeologically speaking is really cool, and we can get into that later if you guys want. But they basically just threw us out there, and we had to build our base from the ground up. And then one of our missions was to train like the ANA and the ANP, the Afghan National Police, and the Afghan National Army. But what happened is they would just come, the Taliban would come and attack us, and they would just leave. They would be like, we're out. And this is like a whole unit, right? Like maybe a company size. So we're looking at a few hundred people that we're supposed to be training that built like another base right next to ours. Like these are just small bases. The biggest mistake they did, because they were trying to nationalize Afghanistan. So if you have to look back in the history when the British were coming in and the Russians were coming in trying to create a puppet government in Afghanistan, the king of Afghanistan, realizing that he couldn't overcome like these huge powers, what he did is that he failed Afghanistan. He sealed Afghanistan's fate by basically recreating the border lines. And so what this did is the border lines of Afghanistan go between like many of the hugest and largest like tribes. So Afghanistan is divided into a bunch of large tribes. You have the Pashto, the Tajiks, and all that. And the only way for them to work together is that they all have to be all into one. So because they're separated by borders now, they only like have allegiance to their tribe. And so basically there's no way Afghanistan can never truly unify because of this. And now, so what they tried to do is they tried to take the ANA and the ANP from different provinces and brought them over to other ones so that one, they wouldn't be corrupt in the other one, and two, in order to create like this type of unity, this nationality. But that didn't work because they have no allegiance to the province they were in to protect it, and so they would just leave. So as soon as we pull out, they don't even resist when the Taliban come through because they're not fighting for this province. They just put down their weapons and armor and they go home because that's not where they're from. They're just being forced here by like the government backed by the United States, and obviously that didn't work out at all. And now like there's going to be a huge civil war between ISIL, the Northern Alliance, and the Taliban. And it's going to be really unfortunate for all the civilians that are just going to be caught in the crossfire in the middle. Well, the Taliban used to be part of the Mujahideen, and the Mujahideen were during the Russian occupation were different groups and tribes that were freedom fighters. And then as soon as the Russians pulled out, they only got a hold of a few like tanks and choppers and were able to take almost all of Afghanistan besides the Northern Alliance. And now they have way more. They have like any of the forces there have enough for like a large military at this point with all the equipment left by the ANA and AMP. So I didn't run across any Sasquatch stories, but to be fair, I didn't ask. I asked interpreters if they had heard any weird stories, and the only weird story I got was in an area nearby us called in Herat province, where it's really famous because that's where Alexander the Great came. He even has like the old walls of a huge Parthenon are still visible. But they say up on one of the mountains there, you have to first find this cave, and once you go into this cave, then you have to there's all kinds of things that can deceive you, like treasure, traps. But if you can cross all those, then you get to the very end of the cave where there's what do you call it? Maybe like a little chasm, I think is the way he described it. And he said it's full of this milk-like substance, which I think he was calling mana. So some type of ethereal energy type thing. But if you're able to cross that, then you're able to speak to an Infrit, which is basically like a genie, and he'll grant you wishes, but he can still deceive you if you're not careful with them. So that was the only cool, interesting story of something unknown that I got when I was over there. But we were down by the beginning of the Hindu Kush mountain range, so it was more arid in that area. So at the time, I made the assumption that I wasn't even thinking about anything like Sasquatch then to ask, but it was an area where I thought like nothing like that would exist at the time. Yeah, I mean, there's honestly, when I was in Iraq, we went to this guy's house. He was a doctor, this Iraqi. He spoke really good English, and he explained to me how the reason like we're Iraq and Afghanistan can be traced back to what the United States did like back in the day. And I thought he was crazy, all the stuff he was telling me. Like how the CIA helped create the Mujahideen, how we funded them weapons and arms. And he went through the whole thing. But then I came back and started reading some history books, and I found out I was the fool, I was like, wow, that's just part of history. It's just not really taught. So it's crazy how all this thing, everything comes full circle. Yeah, the jinn's like a powerful. It's almost like a demigod. So anyway, are there any more questions? If not, I'm gonna probably wrap this up and go grab myself something to eat and feed these pups again. Look at it. Look here. Can you say hi, Maggie? Just asking for food, huh? All right. Well, I guess looks like this is it. Thank you, everyone, for coming and listening and asking questions. I really like it. I love it. You guys are great. Thank you so much for the support. And hopefully I can get out soon. I really miss like field work and running around. But class is starting soon, and I'll have like 4 days off and 3 days on at school. So hypothetically, unless classes end up being really difficult, I should have plenty of time still once I can start walking again to run around in the wilderness and explore. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jody. And thanks, Sage, and everyone else that was here. I appreciate it. And I hope you guys have like a wonderful night. Till next time. Adios. Salud.